Write a letter to yourself, 10 years from now. Most people freeze. Not because they can't write. Because somewhere in their mind, that person barely feels real. You'd never write a letter to a stranger and call it a gift. But that's exactly who your brain thinks you're writing to. Not future you. Just, someone else who happens to share your name. This isn't a metaphor. Scientists put it inside a brain scanner. In 2011, a psychologist named Hal Hershfield ran an experiment at UCLA. He asked people to think about themselves. Then about a stranger. Then he asked them to think about themselves, 10 years from now. The brain scans came back and something didn't add up. The part of your brain that lights up thinking about yourself barely lit up at all for future you. It looked almost exactly like the scan for a total stranger. Your brain isn't lying to you when it ignores future you. As far as it's concerned, that person genuinely isn't you yet. So skipping the gym tonight isn't you hurting yourself. It's you handing a problem to someone you don't quite believe in. This has a name. Economists call it hyperbolic discounting. Your brain doesn't value the future less. It values it wrong. Offer someone $10 today or $15 next week. Most people grab the 10. That 50% gain isn't worth the wait. Now push both offers a year further out. Same 50% gain. Suddenly, almost everyone waits the extra week. Nothing about the math changed. Only the distance did. Up close, your brain grabs. Far away, it can finally be patient. But that's just one fact. It gets stranger. This isn't only about money. It's the reason the snooze button always wins in the morning. It's the reason the fourth drink feels harmless at midnight. In every single case, present you is real, loud, and standing right here. Future you is faint, quiet, and easy to ignore. But here's where it stops being just a personal habit. Because an entire industry noticed this gap decades ago. And built its business on standing exactly inside it. Picture a credit card statement. Two numbers sit side by side. Minimum payment, $25. Full balance, $800. One box is bright and easy. The other is small and gray. That isn't an accident of design. It's tested, and it works. Because paying $25 feels like something present you can handle. And the interest piling onto the rest? That's future you's problem. Households in the US now carry over $1 trillion in credit card debt. Not because people are careless. Because the gap was built to be used. Same story with a payday loan. Same story with a free trial. Cancel anytime is easy to promise, because it's future you's job. Present you gets the reward now. Future you gets the bill later. This is where it stops being funny. Because the same gap sits underneath retirement, underneath health, underneath everything slow. The average person needs decades of small decisions to build real savings. But every one of those decisions is a fight against a stranger. And the stranger usually wins, because the stranger isn't in the room. So here's the moment researchers wanted to see up close. Not a survey. Not a questionnaire. An actual room, with actual people. Hershfield's team put people in front of a mirror. But the reflection wasn't them. It was them, aged forward by decades. A face they'd never met, wearing their own eyes. Then they were asked one simple question. How much of today's paycheck would you set aside for retirement? People who'd only seen their current face barely moved the number. People who'd just seen their aged face doubled it. One glimpse of a real future face, and the stranger stopped being a stranger. Nothing about their finances changed in that room. Only the distance did. Which means the entire problem was never about willpower. It was about how far away future you feel standing right now. Some companies figured out how to use that gap for you, instead of against you. Economist Richard Thaler built a program with exactly that idea. Instead of asking people to save more starting today, he asked something smaller. Would you agree to save more, starting with your next raise? That question doesn't ask present you for anything at all. It quietly asks future you instead, on a day future you won't even notice the difference. In workplaces that used it, average savings rates nearly quadrupled over a few years. Nobody in that plan ever had to feel like they were sacrificing anything. The trick wasn't discipline. It was timing the ask for a future that hadn't arrived yet. Which flips the whole story you've been telling yourself. You were never the exception, sitting there scrolling instead of finishing the task. You were running the exact same brain every human runs. One built to trust what's close, and quietly discount what isn't. So the letter you couldn't write at the start of this. It was never a writing problem. It was a distance problem. You don't need more willpower to close that gap. You need future you to stop looking like a stranger. A photo. A number. A single vivid picture of who's waiting down that road. That's often enough to make the distance collapse. So go back to that letter. Try picturing exactly who's going to open it. Not a stranger. Just you, a little further down the road than you've ever looked. Pick up the pen.